Hi there, I'm Josh and I scored a raw 47 in VCE English Language last year in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. English language was my favourite subject and probably the most useful subject I did in VCE. And one of the main components of Section C, the essay, was finding media examples. There are only two main conditions. The first, they had to be Australian. The user usually had to be an Australian politician, an Australian influencer, or perhaps by an Australian publication. The second thing is that it had to be contemporary. It would have had to come within the last year. I'm not talking about linguist quotes here. Linguist quotes, which are much less specific and much more general, they can come from a very long time ago. I personally use quotes from 10 or 20 years ago. I wouldn't use linguist quotes as much as I do media examples. Linguist quotes I used personally just to round off paragraphs, to round off the essay, to make it seem like I was echoing someone who was much more prominent and famous. In relation to media examples though, the main reason why they shouldn't be longer than a year old is because language changes. Language changes and therefore use of it changes. You can see from recent years that politically correct language, for example, has been becoming more and more prominent. Language relating to COVID-19 pandemic only started last year, and you'd be irrelevant if you started talking about the SARS pandemic in 2003. The second reason is because examples from more than a year ago would have been used in last year's English language exam. And half of the English language exam is really about impressing the examiner. If an examiner sees an example from 2019, they would probably have seen it before. They probably don't want to read about it again, and then they'll get kind of an impression that you're not really that up to date. So those are really the two reasons why you should use media examples from recently. Now I'm going to talk about finding those examples, and there are two main ways to do this. I would recommend starting this from the very beginning. So starting this from your summer holidays. So what you do is you actively find the examples on social media sites and on news sites. Those are the big two. Firstly, I'm going to say Instagram is very good for finding examples for younger people or for influencers. So if you look at Instagram here we have Sam Kerr, an Australian soccer player. So you could potentially say that language she uses is catered to her younger audience. So let's just browse here. Okay, so fast as boy. What could that be used as? It's a there's an expletive there. You could talk about the context of her potentially wanting to set a role model to younger people, but not actually explicitly stating the expletive there. But it's still understandable, so the message is still coherent. She's also using boy in a very playful way. Next up, if we look at this picture here, home leg Sunday. Leg is a form of soccer jargon in a way, not just soccer, but sport jargon in general, to talk about to reference the fact that you need both home and away games in some match fixtures. Everyone in London right now. So right now is obviously an initialism. That's again a form of language used on the internet, form of net speak, as well as youth speak in a way, and also the emoji, which is constantly used, especially by younger people, but not exclusively by younger people, in order to express concepts more quickly without having to type things out. So you can see how just by looking at one person's account, I can look at some media examples which are quite relevant. Now I'm going to move on to Facebook.